Workers from China's rural villages might have propelled the country's economic rise. But with prospects in its cities dwindling amid economic headwinds, many have little to fall back on. While some see few options, others have found success seeking opportunities online.
Skyscrapers, highways, and high-speed railways. They are hallmarks of China's rapid economic development over the past 4 decades. Beneath the hum of the country's megacities today are hundreds of millions of migrant workers who help build them. Most live in the underbelly of China's biggest and wealthiest cities. They work long hours, live in cramped dormitories, and rarely see their loved ones. Official data showed there are still 170 million migrant workers and their accompanying family members who have not yet settled in the cities and towns where they work. Zhu Guohan followed his friends to work in the city after dropping out of high school. For over a decade, the native of Wuyi County in the Zhejiang province landed in many big cities in China. He had worked in restaurants, factories, nightclubs, and even as an extra on movie sets.
在城里其实的话，你去打工其实也就几千块钱个月，也是很辛苦很累。 对不对？可能你眼前的时候，你觉得这几千块钱来的就比较快一点，但你长远来说，你现在随着机器时代的时候，都会被淘汰掉，就你以后你根本没有价值。
The 35-year-old could have followed the path of many generations of migrant workers before him who continue toiling in the cities, some because they've already sold their land in the countryside, and others with little alternative. It might have stayed that way if not for the rise of live streaming platforms like Douyin and Kuaishou, which has leveled the playing fields for those who are savvy enough to use them.
所以说今天也就想早点直播。
Mr. Chu returned to his hometown in 2018 and started live streaming daily on Douyin, the Chinese twin of TikTok, selling smoked bacon and wine, among other local produce. In the next few years, he's accumulated more than 1 million followers. On good days, sales on the live streaming platform could bring in over $1,000 in profits for him. It's good money compared to what he used to earn back in the cities.
以前的想法就是说能为家宣传1年能够3、5万收入呀，但是回来拍的话，很多人不理解，说你家孩子是不是神经病呢？你看在田里啊，一下蹦一下跳，一下挑的东西，一下去砍竹子，一天就在那里啊傻傻叨叨的，而且我还雇了村里人，就是30块钱、50块钱一天帮我呢。 就拿手机按按钮拍东西，但是人家就是那种手机拿着手都抖的嘚，就是前期拍摄很困难，知道吗？
Live streaming is big in China. By December 2023, there were more than 15 million professional live streamers producing content from entertainment to infomercials. There are even clusters in the countryside that have grown into so-called e-commerce villages, which consist of at least 100 active online shops in an area. It's a phenomenon that authorities have been trying to expand as part of plans to revitalize the rural areas. This amid China's slow economic growth and as unemployment creeps up.
建设农村现代物流体系的重要举措，也是转变农业发展方式，带动农民增收，更好满足农村消费需求的有力抓手。
Still, success stories like Mr. Chu's are still few and far between among the country's 300 million migrant workers. For one, the once booming live streaming industry becomes increasingly saturated, even as there could be more who are looking for a rare lifeline with an uncertain economic outlook.
And for more, we have with us in the studio Zoe Zuo, founder and managing director, Innovative Hub, which manages over 30 influencers. And she was born in Sichuan, China. And we also have Dr. Yan Wu, associate professor in media and communication studies, Swansea University. Well, thanks so very much for joining us. I'm going to start with you first, Zoe. We've seen there what Mr. Chu was doing in his live streaming. But can you tell us what are some of the most creative and innovative ideas that you have actually seen coming out of rural China?
Okay, thank Thank you for having me, Ottilie. Talking about live stream in rural China, there are actually a lot of interesting stories to share. I mean, today, if we open the Douyin apps, the equivalent Chinese equivalent TikTok, we'll be able to see a lot of interesting content. Viewers will be able to see people cooking, planting rice, fishing in the rivers, and some streamers they will even stream directly at the farmland. They will be actually showcasing how they're harvesting and packaging, like for example, the orange right on the spot. So the most recent, the most creative thing I saw on Douyin is actually this lady using a donkey to operate the millstone to actually grind beans into powders. Then she sell directly on the stream.
Right.
Yeah, so it actually, all these engaging contents is not only just keeping the viewers, the eyeball, right? It also actually keep them stay longer to interact with her, and eventually leads to a very good sales result. And so I should say it's very innovative.
Yeah, and it's very organic, it's very authentic as well to see, all the hard work, probably beads of sweat, coming off her as she's working as well. Dr. Wu, let's bring you in here. From what Zoe was talking about, whether it's planting or somebody on a donkey or through live streaming itself, it seems like, there is this boom and there's this shift towards leveraging these online platforms like Douyin for economic opportunities. So, Dr. Wu, how significant is this trend, and what does this mean for China's rural economy?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm not an expert on rural economy, but I do see this. In media studies, we always believe any new forms of media communication technology has the democratizing effects. So what we can see here is the bigger picture of China's digital development created this effect, let ordinary people using devices to record their life and make the best use of that recording. So if you look at the bigger picture, internet penetration rate in China reached 77.5% by the end of last year. That is way higher than the global average and higher than the Asian Pacific average. So when you also look, China has been the world's largest online population. By the end of last year, the total number of internet users reached 1.1 billion. Infrastructure-wise, 3.38 million 5G base stations has been built till this March. So what we can see here is a bigger infrastructure and a large online population with the popularity of smartphone. 99.9% of internet users in China access internet via their smartphone. So that's all created a favorable environment for live streaming. I'm actually very pleased to see people in the rural place to use this technology for economic development.
Absolutely, Dr. Wu. And as Dr. Wu was mentioning that China has the world's largest online population, some 1.1 billion. But, we hear stories like, what we saw with Mr. Chu there. But it feels as well that the market is so saturated that it's very difficult to stand out.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes. I think now the most difficult challenges a lot of streamers they are facing is about getting the traffics, because the market is so crowded now. So it's really difficult for newcomers to be able to stand out. So in order for them to be able to outshine the other streamers, I think we can see a lot of interesting creative contents coming out. So they need to have a very unique selling point or maybe very creative ideas to showcase themselves for the live stream studio itself.
But you also see, we have reported, some of the live streamers actually resorting to pretty crass tactics as well to draw eyeballs.
Yes.
But that's also not really the way to go, isn't it?
Definitely. I think nowadays, definitely all these, we should put it like gimmicks, right? They sometimes they will catch your eyeball for a short period, but ultimately when people knows it's a gimmick, then it will have an even back impact on them, actually.
And Dr. Wu here, as we're talking about in terms of content regulation, for instance, right, when it comes to live streaming, how does China clamp down on that?
I want to first just add on to what you just said, the saturation of the market. One thing is, live streaming is not just about e-commerce. It covers a wider field, include, for example, esports, game streaming, talent show. So it's more than e-commerce. So probably different fields respond to different challenges differently. And with this industry growing mature, I think there is also almost like the request for the regulation in place, like Zoe mentioned earlier. There was a lot of research actually pointing out, for example, the content of streaming content could be vulgar and sexual content, etc. So there is the need for market regulation, but whether this is a self-regulating within the industry or there need to be the legal framework to put into place, it's a journey of exploration. The Chinese government promulgated some bills and acts in regulating this market. But streaming industry poses this new challenge because in the past, when you think of media industry, it has clearly separated the field: journalism, entertainment, advertising, etc. But when you look at the streaming industry, they seem to combining all these different sectors together. So the key thing is who's accountable. For example, when, for example, misinformation was published on the platform, who should be responsible? We also know about events such as famous streamers were fined for tax evasion, etc. So it seems to be a more coordinated work to consider the future healthy development of this industry.
So one final question to both of you, and perhaps Zoe, you can start first. I'm just trying to think long-term, looking ahead. What is the future for China's rural workforce in terms of their integration into the digital economy and also, I guess, the broader economic development, sort of the initiatives that are out there?
I think the future is bright for the China rural workforce because I think now they also play a big part in the whole digital economies, and more people are start to learn new digital skills, and it actually gives opportunities for them to better sell online and also work remotely, right? And also I think with the better internet access and government supports, it will actually really give the rural area a real chance to grow the economy. And with technologies, and also it will definitely draw back a lot of young people back to the rural areas. It will eventually grow the economy even so you
better. Think for live streaming, the next wave will come from the rural parts of China?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, Dr. Wu?
Yes. For the future rural economy, you mean? As I said earlier, I feel the streaming industry covers a wider field. And in the future, this is the current models, for example, talent show, esports, game streaming, I personally believe will continue to development. And also I realized in China, there is a huge enthusiasm towards new technologies such as metaverse or VR technology or virtual human. If you probably noticed that there was some already virtual humans has been social media influencers. So when the technology keeps advancing and the market, certain area, the market reached its saturation point, but there's new ways, new strategies for like differentiation and targeting the niche segment will be able to providing new economic growth points.
Oh, very many thanks. Thanks very much, Zoe, as well, for coming down to our studio on Labor Day, founder and managing director of Innovative Hub, and also Dr. Yan Wu, associate professor in media and communication studies, Swansea University.